Kindra Hall. First of all, how many Kindras do you know?
None. No, I know none.
I don't think I've ever heard of another.
I know. I mean, I'm sure they're
It's
out there, but
well, especially with a common name like Hall, it's nice to have a distinctive part of that name.
it's
It's
very
it's really
true.
good.
It's very true.
And you're a New York City resident, but not always.
I have not been my whole life, but I am now, and yeah, for the foreseeable future.
Where did you grow up, Kendra?
I grew up in Minnesota.
That's what I would have guessed. No.
Minnesota girl here through and through. I still cheer for the Vikings, so there you go.
Well, I would imagine the area that you've made yourself an expert in comes in especially handy now with two young teens in the family,
Yeah.
and especially important as you teach them through direct teaching and through example how important it is to be able to express yourself and earn an audience and entertain an audience and communicate in a way that reveals who you are to the kind of people you want to do that with.
Yep. Yep. 100%. It's yeah, you realize that you're teaching all the time.
Whether you think about it or not, you are, and that's good and bad. But
Exactly.
it keeps you on your toes, doesn't
Exactly.
it?
It's true. It's true. It's true.
So, how did you become an expert in communications, and in particular in the art of storytelling?
Yeah, it was an assignment for fifth grade. So we
Hmm.
had to, and it was, I mean, you know, you have these people along your path, and so Mrs. Sprain was my fifth grade teacher, and one of those people I'm really grateful for because she had the vision that, I mean, to your point earlier, I was 12 years old, 11 years old, fifth grade, and she wanted us to become more comfortable presenting, speaking in front of people. So she had a lesson in our English class that was, she called it storytelling, but we were supposed to choose a children's book and then go read it to a classroom of third graders, you know,
Hmm.
little, real little
Those
kids.
young kids.
Yeah, exactly. And and to get us comfortable with expressing ourselves and being in front of people. And so I chose the story. The book was called The Giant's Big Toe. So like an adaptation of Jack and the Beanstalk.
Hmm.
And I added like I just got really into it, thinking of
You weren't just reading; you were performing.
exactly, exactly. And the possibility of, you know, here's my opportunity to be in front of people. And I remember walking into the classroom. It was at the end of the day, it was at the end of the school year. And in Minnesota, it means like the sun was out for the first time in 8 months
The
or
ice
whatever
was
it was.
beginning to thaw.
Exactly, exactly. So the kids were really rambunctious. And I remember getting in front of the class, and I'd been working with the story so much that I didn't even really have to read it. I kind of set the book aside and just
You
told the
saw the
story.
story.
Exactly. And as I was telling it, I still remember everything just kind of the kids settled down, everything got real quiet, and everything kind of focused into this pinpoint that was me and the conduit of the story. I mean, it was the story, but it was me because I was telling it. And I think I remember walking out into the hallway and being like, "Wow, I what just happened there?" And apparently, the teacher that was in the classroom and then my teacher, Mrs. Sprain, they talked, and Mrs. Carlson was the first classroom. She said she's really got something here. So then I ended up, instead of just telling to one classroom, I ended up going on tour around the whole school. I was like the end of the day slot for the rest of the school, which I'm like, oh, now looking back as an adult, as someone who understands what a classroom looks like at the end of the day, at the end of the school year, like how great that you can bring in this like Hail Mary pass. But it was just again and again, it didn't matter how old the kids were, it didn't matter. And when you're in fifth grade, like fifth graders are terrifying because you want to be
Hmm.
cool, you want to be um but I went into the fifth grade classes, and I think that's really when I realized I had a there was something there. But what is it? You know,
Hmm.
I didn't really know at the time. But that's the first I remember it very clearly. I still have for graduation, Mrs. Sprain gave me the book. She pulled it out of her classroom shelf and signed it for me. So I have it in my bookshelf at home.
When I was first asked to do some public speaking a long time ago, 40 years ago probably, I was terrible at it. And it was a great unlock. I worked with a fellow who taught me what you're in the business of teaching people now, which is it's you can't memorize a speech and deliver a speech. So what I talk about is I always talk in the form of stories. I wasn't fortunate enough to have you be ahead of me in age so that I could learn from you. But I remember there was a big audience I was going to speak to. It was, I think, 15,000 people out in Madison, Wisconsin. And I was really nervous about it. And then finally, I just surrendered to the fellow who I was working with on the content. And he said, I've heard you tell stories about this or that. He says, just get up there. Your message should be a series of your stories that make the point you want to make. And if you're telling your stories, you don't have to memorize anything. You'll walk through it. You'll see it. You'll remember it. And that was the greatest unlock for me in terms of public speaking, is to just tell my stories in terms of make them entertaining enough, but to make the point I want to make through a story. You can't sit there and just tell. I'll read a speech or a speech on economics. All I can do is tell stories.
Yep. And I think the advice that you got was so wise on both of those fronts, in that tell the stories. That's what they want to hear, whether they know it or not. It will make it so much easier for you. So the value of telling the stories, and then secondarily, the importance of matching the stories to the message you want to deliver. And I think that is the difference. And you've seen it, I'm sure, between great speakers and exceptional ones. Great speakers tell stories, and at the end of it, you feel good. You feel like you know them better. Maybe you're reminiscing about some of your own stories. It's not exactly clear why they were telling those stories, but you feel good for having heard them. Excellent speakers are the ones who are very clear first with the message they want to deliver, with what they want the audience to learn and to know, and then matching that message to the stories that they tell, so that at the end of the story, the people listening to it not only are like, that was an amazing story, but also, I feel the message within me. I will never forget it. I feel like that's a nuance that sometimes gets lost when people are talking about the importance of telling stories. Is you say, oh, you got to tell a story, but if you're not matching it to the message, it's not going to be as effective as it could be.
Absolutely. The other thing I learned early on is not to be afraid to be self-deprecative. And it just shows your humanity. And it's a lesson I learned from a terrific entrepreneur. He was a hero and friend and mentor. His name was Wayne Huizenga.
Okay.
Wayne Huizenga created 5 different Fortune 500 companies: Blockbuster, Waste Management, Republic Industries, Extended Stay of America. So one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time.
Right.
And what he taught me, and I can, as I'm telling you this story, I'm back in that conference room with him in Fort Lauderdale, and he said, Jim, you and I are entrepreneurs. We make more mistakes than most anyone else we know. But the difference between them and us, and he's given me credit I didn't deserve, is we pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves off, and we get on with it. We don't say, oh, I'll never make that mistake again. I'm going to make that mistake again.
Right.
Because we're doers. And he said, and then the trick is we turn it into a story where we make fun of ourselves for how stupid we were. He said, because then people see you're real and you're not trying to present yourself as perfect. And we just get on with it. And that was 30 years ago, or 35 years ago, he told me that. And I think of it all the time.
Well,
How do I just 2 weeks, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now. We were at a party at a beach club, and my daughter and her husband and the 3 kids were there. My wife and I were there. Our other 2 kids weren't there that day because we started a tradition of taking a whole family shot at that particular event.
Oh, I love that.
And this year was one of the 3 kids' families were there. So they had this beautiful balloon arch as you left the deck to walk down the stairs to go to the beach. And I said, oh, what a beautiful spot for a family picture. So the 7 of us walked over there, and I'm unconscious about people around me. And there's this couple coming up the arch, and they stop, and someone wants to take a picture of them underneath the arch just as we were approaching. So there were 5 of us. I had my phone out, and I said, well, excuse me, you're so good at getting your picture taken. Perhaps you'd be interested in taking a picture of my family for me. And they sort of looked at me, and they were a little befuddled. And they were like confused that I was asking them to take a picture. It was Cindy Crawford and her husband. His name is...
Oh, that's great.
Randy Gerber, the inventor of Dos Amigos tequila.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
So they were nice enough. They took the picture of us, and my daughter is saying, "Dad, you have no damn clue who you just asked to take our picture."
So
They were befuddled because everyone's always looking to take their picture.
Right. And you were like, "Hey, can you?" Oh, that's amazing.
So my daughter and my wife have been telling that story for the last 2 weeks now about how clueless Grandpa is about who celebrities are around us.
Oh my gosh! But that's so. That's a great story. And then what happens is too, even as you're telling it, I'm remembering stories. We have
where you did something that was embarrassing,
right? Or like a photo taking. Even as specific as at one time we were on a flight, and my husband looks a lot like this actor David Boreanaz, and he doesn't get it all the time, but especially when he was younger. And so we were on a plane, and this woman gets on the plane and sees him sitting there, and it's like, David, I went to high school with you. I know you, David. And she and we didn't. When somebody's saying someone else's name, you don't look up, right? So it took us a moment to realize what was happening and how excited this woman was to see this actor, David Boreanaz, who it wasn't even him. And then we realized as we were getting off the plane that the woman sitting behind us, directly behind us, was Annie Leibovitz, the infamous photographer. And then I said, oh, what a missed opportunity for the woman who thought she saw a famous person, but right behind him was the famous person. And then for me, I said, we should have just turned around to the lady in the seat behind us and said, would you take our picture? We're coming to get a picture. Can you imagine? Because we didn't realize till we were getting off the plane. Can you imagine if we had gotten our photo
Annie Leibovitz to take your picture
without realizing it?
Wait, I have to redo the lighting.
Yeah, exactly. She probably would have said no, because she probably would have thought we were trying to
sell her picture.
Yeah, that's so funny. But you're so right about the importance of self-deprecation and sharing the mistakes or the very human moments that we have. I think that happens, especially when it comes to business storytelling, a lot.
So how do you work with a CEO of a company to help him or her be a better storyteller?
Yeah. It takes some, you, just as you've proven right here, are an incredible storyteller. There are some leaders of companies that are so used to the rote phrasing. So think mission statement, think this is our customer promise, or where these are the KPIs. And it almost comes as CEO training, I would think. You have to know all of that in such a compact way. And being able to communicate it, that's usually where they'll default. And so when I have worked with leaders, whether they're CEOs or wherever they are in the organization,
I would imagine not-for-profit leaders would be especially important to be able to work with you.
Exactly, because because you can talk around the mission, you can talk around even the funds that are raised, but the story of, and there's a couple of different layers here. So, I had the honor of working with several CEOs of nonprofit, various levels of nonprofit organizations, and the importance of them telling their own personal stories of who they are and why they're here, and ultimately why they believe in the cause that they're working towards. And then also telling the stories that tie into and illustrate and demonstrate the mission of the nonprofit or the company, in general. How do we see that in action? And honestly, it can take a little bit of time because we're not used to telling our own stories necessarily. We're used to talking about the company, the nonprofit, whatever the messaging is that we're tasked with delivering. So
Well,
to take
especially if you're
that
leading a
back,
non-for-profit,
yeah,
you have to go find those stories of how someone who is the recipient of the work, the beneficial work that a nonprofit does, find a story that makes the point. Because tell me, okay, how much you raise, how much you spend, how many people that impacts, but tell me this, tell me the story about Emily, who
yep.
was. This is a real story that happened to me, but it just so epitomized. We have a charity called Smile Farms, and I'm the oldest of 5 children. My middle brother Kevin was born developmentally disabled, so my youngest brother Chris and I, with the help of a terrific friend who's a great storyteller who started an agency that now cares for 8,000 people every day with developmental disabilities and disabilities of all kinds here in the New York area. And we started this charity, and we were at a dinner, a fundraising dinner early on. We started 10 years ago, so this was 9 years ago. And this couple, younger than me, came up to me and said, "We just want to thank you and your family for the work you do at Smile Farms." I said, "Oh, it's not work at all for us. We really enjoy it and love it." And what we do is we teach and we create work opportunities for people with developmental disabilities, like my brother Kevin. And we started with greenhouses and growing plants and foodstuffs. And so my brother now for those 10 years has been happily engaged with and employed with 35 other people like him, growing product every day. And I heard all about it yesterday until I wanted to put cotton in my ears. But at that dinner dance on a Thursday night, right after Mother's Day is very important to us here at 1-800-Flowers,
Yes.
this couple came up to me and said, "We want to thank you for the work you do." Bop. And they said, "Let me tell you about our daughter, Emily." It's a real problem, Kindra, for people when they age out of school programs with developmental disabilities.
Yeah.
Uh, they have nothing to do. And Emily lived on Eastern Long Island and lived with her parents, so she was fortunate. They both worked. But they said she had started to deteriorate. She had nothing to do. She was getting depressed. She was laying around the house all day watching TV. Her brother and sister, who were older and married and had their own families in nearby communities, had started to disengage with her because she was such a pain in the neck to be around. He confessed to me that sometimes he worked late in the office, even if he didn't have to, because dinner had become such a nightmare at home. And they said what changed for them was when Emily was interviewed, qualified, and started working at Smile Farms, the same place my brother Kevin works. And he said things turned around.
Yeah.
She lost weight. Her health improved. She was more tolerable to be around. She was actually smiling every once in a while. She looked forward to getting up in the morning,
Yeah.
and even though she complained about it regularly. But they said she became a person again. And in fact, they were all excited because the next day, Friday, they were going. She and her mom were going shopping for an outfit for the dance that was coming up because she was so excited about going and hoping that this certain young man would ask her to dance. And that story for me, I remember telling my wife this story in the car on the way home. I said, you don't realize the impact you're having when you're dealing with, okay, how many people are we caring for?
Right.
But when you can boil it down to one case where someone painted the picture for you of how the work you're doing or trying to support actually makes a difference. It just rang a big old gong bell in my head of, wow, that's what all of this is about. It's helping the Emily's and her family, because it's not just Emily.
Right.
A whole family was
Right.
suffering.
Yep.
And I tell that story from time to time because there are so many people who have more need. The need is almost overwhelming. So we're trying to grow how much we raise so we can employ more and more people. But just to ask them, hey, would you help fund this effort? This is what we do. I have to tell them the story of an Emily or of a Kevin or of David, who is going to be our Farmer of the Year in November at our big gala in Manhattan at the Ziegfeld Ballroom.
Oh, wow.
I saw yesterday, and he's going to be our Farmer of the Year. And I walked into the group home last night, bringing my brother Kevin back after dinner, and I said, is there a celebrity in this house? And David was sitting on the couch, and he popped up with a big smile. Are you talking about me? But to see the difference it makes in his life. But our job, whether it's in a not-for-profit or in a business, is to influence the culture.
Mm-hmm.
We can't control it.
No.
But there are a few dials that we can use to influence. And one of them is the things we choose to celebrate in story, or the things we choose to ignore and not celebrate. And it tells people where the rails are.
Yep, exactly. And I think that, when it is so easy to, especially for not-for-profit, to say we're helping so many people, we've changed this many lives, but the importance of focusing on one, and even something in the telling of that story that you just did is something that not everybody does. A lot of times when they're like, okay, we need to be using a story, we'll say, here is Emily, she was struggling, she came in to Smile Farms and now she's doing wonderful, and all of these incredible things have happening and all these great things. But what you did as you were telling this story, Jim, is you talked about the hard things. You talked about how the family was pulling away, how difficult it really was, and that is essential for anyone who's listening to that story to be able to understand the
why it's important.
Exactly. And then if you're talking it to families who are in the middle of that, or they're still at that first part with when Emily was struggling, they're not going to believe the end of that story if you don't tell the first part, so that they can say, wait, that's how we feel, or that's what we've been struggling with. Maybe there's a solution here. So including that part of the story is so important to illustrate the impact that really happens. And that's the part that often gets left out.
From gratitude to comfort to birthdays. Commemorate life's important moments with something special. Find the perfect gift at Harry and David. We make it easy to be thoughtful.
Well, I'm at the other end of the life spectrum. I'm fortunate enough to have 7 grandchildren, 3 kids,
Wow.
7 grandchildren. And the oldest is 16 now, but last year, 15, I convinced my daughter, her mom, to let me take her out of school for a day. She's a very good student, because we were hosting at Worth Media Group, we were hosting a event over in the Hudson Yards called Groundbreaking Women. And it's a couple of hundred amazing and talented women in one space for the day.
Yeah.
And my role is to open it, to say hello and welcome, get the heck out of the way.
Oh.
So my daughter said, well, if Abby's going with you, maybe I'll go too. And then my wife said, well, if
Oh, wow.
Abby and Erin are going, I'll go too. So I said, the best way to get there is the Long Island Railroad. We live on Long Island.
Yeah.
And Hudson Yards, as you know, is just a block and a half away from Penn Station.
Right.
So we go in, and in the morning I tell a story about her. I said, I introduced my granddaughter, and I asked her to stand, and everyone turned and looked at her in the back, and she got really uncomfortable. But, and I told this story. I said, boy, things have changed. Here we were taking the train together. So it was my daughter and my granddaughter sitting facing Mary Lou and I.
Yep.
And I took out my Wall Street Journal that I had picked up off the driveway that morning, and I'm looking through it. And she looks at me and said, wow, I've never seen anybody read a newspaper before. So, but in terms of putting them on the spot, on the way home that night, she said it was one of the great days of her life, because everyone was so nice to her. And throughout the course of this long day, in through a dinner, everyone kept coming up to her, introducing themselves, sharing a story with her. And I remember one of our speakers was Stacey Abrams.
Oh, yeah.
The lady's run for governor a few times in Georgia. And she took my granddaughter aside in the green room, and they had this great chat together. And I was, as a grandfather, I was beaming all day at the attention that she was being shown. Back to Smile Farm. So a month after that, I said, we're giving out awards at our golf outing. I said, Abby, would you come up with me to help me give out the awards? Yeah, sure. And to see her now from that experience, and I think there was a direct correlation.
Yep.
She was comfortable enough to be up on stage, and now looking forward to it. Because she said to me, if you need me to do anything up for the dinner, I'd be happy to do that. Organizing it.
Wow.
So it's got benefits in so many ways, and I
Right.
bet you have to be careful because the cobbler's kids didn't have shoes. So your kids have to be expected to be very good in public and in expression and
Yes.
conversation and storytelling.
Yes, exactly. Well, again, they absorb, they follow the lead. So that's,
Yeah.
I would say it's one of my proudest things when I'll have a friend text me, because we're in the city, and so they're walking to school, and it is a small town in some respects. And so I'll have a friend text me after, like, they've gone to school, and she'll say, I just ran into your son on the street, and we just had the most wonderful conversation. And I thought, I like that. That's good. You want them to be able to converse with all different peoples, including their mother's friends that they don't really know. They only know that my mom knows you.
Hearing you talk about doing hour-long keynotes, I was honored this year to be the commencement speaker at St. John's University graduation. And someone at the party said that their nephew had graduated and was in the audience that day, and he said he was blown away by his speech. And they said, well, was that hard to do? And I said, it was really hard to do because it was 15 minutes, I think 14:30. But I'm going to ask you this. You can do an hour easily.
100%.
14 minutes and 30 seconds is a lot harder.
It's so much harder. It's so much harder. And to that end, too, and I'm sure you did this, is when you're thinking, okay, I only have 14 minutes. There's a part of you, this happened to me once. I had a keynote that was supposed to be 60, and then it got moved around, and then it got moved all the way down to, I think it was like 18 minutes or something, very short, 2 days before it. And my instinct was, okay, I've got to keep all the information in. I've got to keep.
Cannot.
What you really need to keep is what is the most important story or the two most important story.
Well, I think two things. One is I'm on the lookout. I've learned over the years, and I have a board member here at 1-800-Flowers who's been a friend of mine since 1986. He grew up here in Queens and Long Island, and I met him. He was living in St. Louis, and I was working in Dallas. And he came to pitch me on something, and I said, with that accent, you're not from St. Louis.
Yes.
You sound like me.
Yep.
And we've been friends since then. But he's a great communicator, a natural communicator, and in fact teaches at Wash U presentation skills. And his point is it's your responsibility to own the audience. And we're blessed here because once a year or so he'll come and teach a class to our senior management on presentation skills.
Wow, amazing.
And he has so many good things. And I sit on every time he does it because I learn something new every time. And one of them is something and that is the power of silence. Not to be afraid to let there be a moment of silence, because too many people, I got to fill this void here. But you don't. I've seen you in action. You know how to use that power.
Yeah.
And he talks about the power of the stage and the responsibility of leadership when you're to own the audience. And so he's taught me to be on the lookout for stories. And I keep notes on stories and the categories I think they'd be appropriate in. And, always having written a couple of books now, I'm always on the lookout for stories. And, I'll play with them and see if that one really didn't work. It didn't make the message I wanted to work.
Yep,
Cast
exactly.
aside.
Yep.
But if I'm going back to do a presentation someplace, I'll look through my archives. And now it's all digital, different stories. And there's one I haven't told in a long time, but that would be appropriate to make this point here.
Yep.
How about you?
Yep. I'm asking because I'm terrible at it.
Really?
I am. I have
as gifted as you are.
Well, I just because I think there are just so many that I can feel them slipping through the cracks all the time. And so I write out my stories a lot in my notes app, and honestly where they end up oftentimes going is even just as Instagram captions, so that I can go back through my archives of the different stories that I've posted that are out in the world that
you're sharing your files with the world.
Exactly. Exactly. They're out there. If I need a story, I'm like, oh wait, there's this one.
So that begs a question. I find that in my reading, viewing habits are changing as a result of the new technologies.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time I sat down and watched a movie.
Yeah.
Those 48-minute shows are about the longest I can watch now.
Yeah.
Reels and Instagram are changing my viewing habits. There's so much good content out there
Yes. And you'll notice what's happening. There's been a trend. Now I've decided to opt out of TikTok altogether, which professionally maybe that's a terrible idea, but it's still me posting. So I'm like, I don't want to spend any more time consuming content. So I don't need to bring in another platform. But an interesting trend, particularly that was happening, I'm sure it was happening on TikTok if it was happening on Instagram, but people posting like 1 minute reels that started with a story, that told a story, but then they would say part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. And the algorithm would randomly serve me part 4 of this story that's only a minute long.
No, I want not part 1.
Exactly. So then what do? I go back to whoever posted it, and I'm scrolling back through. I'm trying to find part 1, and then I'm going all the way through and watching all the way to part 14 of a person.
They got you, and they reeled you in.
So it is so interesting because the tendency is to say these short videos are changing our attention span, but when it's a good story,
oh yeah, it's always been the case.
The amount of time I've spent having to go back because sometimes they'll do part 1, but they'll have all these other posts in between. I'm spending 30 minutes trying to find this story. So
apparently it works.
It's like it still works, and I get so mad because I'm like, I know what is happening here, but we can't resist it, right? So it's still, I would imagine we would all watch more movies. And you saw this happen, I think, even with you saw it happen with the Barbie movie. We saw it happen with Wicked, like when they become where there is a lot of storytelling happening as marketing for the movie. And I've never said this out loud before, but you just made me realize if the movie is part 14, and all of the marketing beforehand is, I've got to see this, and maybe it's behind the scenes things. Maybe it's not even a part of the story, or then they release clips of the movie that are the story, and that gets people into the theater willing to watch the full 2 hours.
The art and science of creating a phenomenon.
100%. And I bet if you look back, a lot of it would be the stories that they were telling to get you into the theater.
And what medium?
Want to miss it.
So, Kindra, expert as you are, and everyone now in our audience has an opportunity to get to know you, if they're smart enough to want to engage with you and learn more about your services, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, there's a couple of ways. Certainly you can find me not on TikTok. And I think I have an X account, but don't go there. I'm not there either.
You're on LinkedIn.
Instagram, Facebook, you can go there. But my website is easy. It's Kindra, Kindra, Hall.com. So KindraHall.com. And on there, you'll see a lot of my content, but there's also a contact form. And there's an option on the contact form to say, I'm looking for a keynote speaker. I'm looking for training. And then I think there's an option that says, I'm not really sure, maybe you can help. So if that's where you're at, just go ahead and choose that option.
KindraHall.com, KindraHall.com.
That's right.
Sounds easy enough to remember.
Easy.
Kindra, it's so nice to get to know you today and chat with you. You're just fun to talk with and speak with. And it's not surprising considering what you do, but you never know. And so delighted.
Well, maybe I'll see you on the LIRR sometime. We go out.
I don't know if you want to stoop so low as to travel with me and my commoner friends.
Your motley. I know the seats you're talking about on the LIRR that face each other. Like we take the train out.
There's only one or two per car.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to get them too. Those are the good ones when you're traveling with the family. What a pleasure. This has been a bright spot in a week that's just getting started. So. Thank you.
Well, I hope the rest of the week is as good. Thanks, Kindra.
Bye.